Good evening, everyone. As we start the meeting, I would request all of you to stand for a silent prayer. Now, for the welcome address and introduction of our speaker, I would request Mr. K. Srinivasan, our MC member, to introduce.
President of the Kerala Management Association, Mr. Vibhu Punuran, Mr. Tom P. Joseph, member of the Executive Committee, our chief guest, Mr. Hormis Tharakan Ips, our past presidents, members of the KMA, ladies and gentlemen. I've been tasked with the responsibility of formally welcoming you all to this interesting session which we are all looking forward to. Let me formally start with our president, Mr. Vibhu. I know him for the last 25 years very closely. Extremely busy person. He is the CEO of the Medivision Group of Diagnostic Centers, dozens of branches and hundreds of collection centers. I really don't know how he gets the time for Kerala management activities related with the Rotary, and so many other associations. But in spite of all his busy schedule, he found the time to be here, and every week and for all the activities, as per his commitment, he will be present at the meeting. So welcome you to this evening's lecture series. Next is Mr. Tom P. Joseph. Our secretary, Mr. Dr. Anil, is not here. So Mr. Tom has agreed to be here at this meeting. I formally welcome you to this evening session. The most important person to whom I should extend the welcome on behalf of Kerala Management Association is Dr. Hormis Tharakan. He is going to deliver us a speech on who will police the police, history of the police reforms in India. Very interesting topic. Now, every day we hear about corruption in the police force, custodial deaths and rapes, bulldozer policing. Instead of professional policing, it's politically committed police officers. So what exactly has to be done? As far as the common man is required, he expects a police who is honest, a police station where he can walk in, I'm talking about the common man on the street, where he can walk into the police station without any fear, where the police will deliver justice without any favor. But that's not happening even in a 100% literate state like Kerala. If you or I am asked to come to the police station, you'll think twice. Immediately you will go to a lawyer, you will or somebody contact a politician to find out, do you know somebody that have been asked to come to the police station? That should not be the case. Because the colonial history of the police is a ruthless police. That is still in the police gene. So what exactly has to be done to police the police force so that you have a professional police which is neutral, which is professional, a police force which is committed to the rule of law and to the constitution and not to the political cause? Because I have also been in service for some time, not in the police force, but some of my batchmates are DGPs now. I hear a lot of stories from them. I don't want to comment too much. Of late, we have been hearing a lot of things of the happenings in our state police also. Earlier, these things used to happen at the lower levels. Now, at the higher levels also, we are hearing. Malayalam, there is a saying, Imran ittiri kattu pujichal ambalavasigal kattumuttikku. So, these negative trends have seeped into the police at the higher level. It's high time that somebody steps in and stops this rot. Now, who other than Dr. who other than Mr. Hormis Tharakan to speak upon that? He is a member of the 1968 IPS officer, Kerala cadre, started his career as ASP Palghat, rose up to the position of the Director General of Police in the state 2003-2005. Later on, he was the chief of the dreaded by our opponents, RAW, Research and Analysis Wing, the external intelligence agency of the Government of India. He was appointed as a secretary in the Cabinet Secretariat at Delhi. He was later on the advisor to the government of Karnataka in 2008 when the state went into the president's rule. He was a member of the National Security Advisory Board, which advises the National Security Council. That was during the period of 2008-2010. He was the chief advisor on strategic studies for BrahMos Aerospace. He has been an adjunct professor with Manipal University in the Department of Geopolitics and International Studies and continues to be an advisor for the Manipal Group of Education Institutions. He writes on several issues on papers in Hindu, Indian Express, Malayalam Manorama, Madhrubhumi, on issues of geopolitics, terrorism, peace and culture, conflict resolution, and several other varied topics. He had been on several committees set up by the state government on the prevention of corruption, setting up of police universities in the state. He comes from the renowned Parail family. Nobody needs to introduce about the family, everybody knows about the Parail family. In fact, two of his cousins, one is namesake Hormis Tharakan and Mr. Thomas Tharakan are also here. I welcome you also. More have come. Oh, more of the Tharakan family. So happy to welcome you all. Now, it's not that he is confined to police only. I have interacted with him, sir may not remember, I was telling him when I was the OSD to CM, I have interacted with him 30 years back several times. It's very difficult to see such a polished, honest, I'm telling you from the heart, very polished, honest, professional police officer. Now a police officer has another side also. He is very much into art and literature. He was one of the founding trustees of the Binale, Kochi Binale. He also is associated with several NGOs on education, peace and so many other several things. I'm not taking too much of time. So on behalf of the Kerala Management Association, we welcome you for this lecture series and we all look forward to your speech and the interactive session which we'll have thereafter. Before I invite you, let me invite Mr. Bibu Punuran to deliver the presidential address. Thank you.
Most respected chief guest of the day, Mr. Hormis Tharakan, fellow managing committee members Tom and Srinivasan, managing committee members of the DAS, program committee chair especially Mr. Ajis Khalid, past presidents, fellow KMA members, dear student members, and few of the Tharakan family members who have joined us today. A warm good evening once again to all of you. Being a good police officer is one of the most difficult, dangerous, idealistic jobs in the world. I think everybody would agree to that particular saying because just as Mr. Srinivasan was saying, getting into a police station is perhaps the most harrowing experience or the most frightening experience for an ordinary citizen. So, in case there is anything, thankfully at least in this part of the country, democracy works well, and so in case there is anything, normally the ordinary citizen would catch hold of the local politician or a lawyer before he goes to a police station. And just as he put it, because of those genes that are continuing down the line from perhaps the pre-independence era, even now, the ordinary citizen in our country dare not get into a police station just like that. I'm sure that many of you sitting here would give your own experiences about, having gone to a police station and had mostly not too good experiences. The accountability of the police. So the police is above law, I would say, or they put it like that, they are above the law until some scam or something like that comes up, and then there is the judiciary interferes and all that. So that's about how things are. So this particular topic about who will police the police is, when I was just thinking about it, I was thinking about in our maybe in our family circles or whatever. Usually I was thinking about my own children, when supposing I gave them, when they were younger, of course, I give them a small beating or so, they would run to my father or my mother, and then, so that they would police me. Their grandparents would police me. But then, in our country, I think it is the judiciary that is perhaps, doing that particular job to the policemen. But there are rare exceptions, and I think we have been lucky to get Mr. Hormis Tharakan to come here and speak to us in an exclusive gathering today evening. Because as we all know, much has been said about him already, and all his credentials have already been explained. And I think one small point that Srinivasan missed was perhaps the fact that he is very passionate about farming, and he was telling now it's time for the harvest of his paddy fields, and then after that it would be prawn cultivation. So I think that's a topic in itself altogether. But we should be listening more to one of India's most respected police officers of our times, who has also adorned the post of being the chief of RAW, the Research and Analysis Wing of the country. And I think it's a proud moment for all of us here, and actually for Kerala, I think we should all be proud that a citizen from our state could hold that position. And on a personal front, I'm also very happy that he is here, because we happen to be related through a marriage. My niece is married to his nephew, so that is also there. So I'm very, very happy that he has come today. And once again, a warm welcome to you, sir, and look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Mr. President, Bibu people ran, members of the management committee, Mr. Srinivasan and Mr. Tom P. Joseph, Mr. L.G.S. Khalid was responsible for inviting me here, and distinguished members of the audience. I am indeed very happy to be here today to address the Kerala Management Association. I know some of the distinguished personalities like Mr. P.K Nair, Mr. Venu Vasudevan, and Dr. K. Raghavan, who have been here recently to address the KMA in recent weeks, and have been duly warned about the high level of interaction that I can expect here. Indeed, I am truly honored to have been invited here to address you. The subject of my talk today is who will police the police. This, of course, is the English version of the famous Latin phrase, quis custodiet ipsos custodes, which literally means who will watch the watcher or the watchman. This query is found in satires written by a first century Roman poet named Juvenal. In recent times, Terry Pratchett and several other authors have again reused this query in their writings and their poem. It has regained prominence, and in any case, this question has remained relevant even centuries after it was initially asked. Every generation needs to be vigilant about the keepers of the law, whether they be from the executive or the judiciary. I should, however, confine myself in this talk to the police, which is part of the executive, and shall not deal with the judiciary at all. The term police also has its origin in a Latin word, politia, which means the condition of the state. We could say that it stands for a system of regulation for the preservation of law and order. The police or the guards have always been part of administration ever since the beginning of history. Our old religious texts, ancient texts, are replete with references to guards. Actually, those familiar with there are repeated references in the Vedas and also in the Bible. Actually, in the Christian funerals, there is this repeated chant which says that like the guards who wait for the dawn, Israel waits for its Lord. It is a so that concept about guards has always been there. In India, the policing was initially entrusted during the Gupta period to a certain category called dandekas. Literally means people who with sticks. Also, similarly in South India, they were known as kolkars or kavalkar. The Mughals introduced a more sophisticated system in which kotwals were placed in charge of urban areas and darogas of rural areas. These designations prevailed even during the British period, even after different systems were progressively introduced. So much so that in the north, and some who are from the north would know that these terms, Kotwal and Daroga, came to represent the imperial power in all its magnificence. For the common man, the Daroga meant, he was the local representative of the empire. In fact, there is a joke that one of the early presidents of India, when he went back to the village to get his mother's blessings, and told her that I have become Rashtrapati. She said, "My dear son, you will go even higher. You will become a Daroga." Ladies and gentlemen, the idea of a separate regular police force as it exists today evolved over time after the commencement of the British rule. Warren Hastings introduced several measures of police reforms in 1774. However, Lord Cornwallis, who was Governor General from 1786 to 1793, is credited with the creation of the institution of the regular police. It is said that his limited purpose in setting up the police was to help the district collector in collecting land revenue. But it was Major General Sir William Sleeman who actually changed the character of the police in India. He was in charge of the anti-dacoity department set up in 1835, and through a remarkable operation covering various states of the north, he suppressed the thuggee movement, which was a major criminal activity going on at the time. And one can say that the police as we know today evolves from the system that he developed. In fact, the anti-thuggee department that he started, he founded, later was converted into the Intelligence Bureau, which even continues today, and he is the primary, in fact, we all consider the director of the Intelligence Bureau as the #1 policeman in India. So in certain sense, you can say that Sleeman was the founder of the police, as a modern police in India. The first war of Indian independence, referred to by the British historians as the Sepoy Mutiny, took place in 1857. This widespread uprising, which the British managed to suppress with great difficulty, made the imperial masters rethink seriously about how to administer and control a vast country like India effectively. Obviously, a different kind of policing was required. And they set up a police commission called the first Indian Police Commission to study the problem in all its aspects, come up with recommendations about setting up a modern police in India. And as a result, the Indian Police Act of 1861 was introduced. In fact, this law continued to govern the government, the police in India until very, very recently. The new system provided for an Inspector General of Police who was responsible for the law and order of an entire province. And in those days, as you know, British India consisted of 11 provinces. And of course, there were a large number of other native states, as they call them, which were ruled by Maharajas. They are referred to as princes. So now, under the Inspectors General of Police in each province, there were district superintendents of police who were responsible for managing the police, administering the police within their districts, along with the district magistrates or district collectors who were responsible for the overall maintenance of law and order. The Indian Police Act of 1861 completely separated the police from the military, making it an independent body, supporting the overall administration in the maintenance of law and order. It is worth recalling that at the same time, more or less at the same time, the British police was also, the British police in Britain was also undergoing a significant transformation. Sir Robert Peel introduced the London Metropolitan Police System in 1829, which was built around the unarmed and friendly policeman known as the Bobby. He's even today referred to as the ideal policeman. The proper, courteous, efficient policeman that we, all of us, would like our policemen to be. However, in India, it is not the British, that particular system of the British Metropolitan Police that was introduced by the 1861 Act, but a system based on the Irish Armed Police Constabulary, which is why our policemen carry arms and it is. I think that system was introduced mainly because of William Sleeman's success in dealing and suppressing the Thuggy problem, which was a major threat facing law and order in the mid-19th century. Now, this 1861 Act was considered a revolutionary system when it was introduced. Although I'm now arguing that it is defective, and many of the problems of the Indian police today is on account of that Police Act. But when it was introduced at the time, it was supposed, considered to be a very revolutionary step. Mainly because even the white man was brought under the jurisdiction of the local police station, which could be managed by a station house officer who could be an Indian or a native, as they said, which was totally unacceptable to, anathema to most white people who were here at the time. In fact, some time back I picked up a very, very interesting book from a bookshop in Fort Cochin. It's a reprint of an old book written by a person called Charles Allen Lawson. The title of the book was British and Native Cochin. Lawson was a British citizen who lived in Fort Cochin for several years in the mid-19th century. And he writes this around the time that the new act is about to come into being. And he says, he writes with much apprehension about the new police system which is about to be introduced. He says, and I quote, "Moreover, to the latter," that is the native policeman, "is given such authority over Europeans as is only likely to be exercised for personal motives. For a native is never so much pleased as when he may snub or domineer over a sahib." Unquote. Now, at the same time, the British made sure that even if the station house officer in charge of a police station could be an Indian, they made sure that there were checks and balances over the exercise of police powers by the natives. As we know, the imperial administration was built around the steel frame, consisting of mainly the ICS district collector and district superintendent of police, who was from the Imperial Indian Police. The Imperial Indian Police was actually not confined to India alone. They also used to send officers to Burma and several other countries where the British rule extended to. In fact, George Orwell, who, about 1984, was an Imperial Indian Police service officer who served in Myanmar. Now, the Indian civil service was thrown open to the Indians in 1863, when Satyendranath Tagore passed the exam and was inducted into the ICS. But the Imperial Indian Police, no Indian was admitted there until 1920, nearly 60 years later. Now, coming back to the Indian Police Act of 1861, it was actually enacted as a model police act. Even at that time, police was a subject to be handled by the provinces. Subsequently, under the Indian Constitution, we followed that same system, that police is a subject which is with the state governments. So at the time, the central government enacted the Indian Police Act and said there is a Model Police Act which the provinces, if they so desire, can adopt. And every province of India did that. So they appointed an Inspector General of Police and then introduced this new system. Around the same time, not exactly, 1861 to 1890, during the period, the Indian Penal Code, the Criminal Procedure Code, and the Indian Evidence Act were also enacted. These form the backbone, if there are lawyers here, they would know that, form the backbone of the Indian criminal justice system. And these three acts which I mentioned have now been very recently amended, not actually amended, sort of replaced by new laws called the Bharatiya Nyaya Samhita, Nagarik Suraksha Samhita, and Bharatiya Sakshi Adhiniyam. Sorry, although police name, you have to learn the new names properly. But these have more or less the same provisions as the previous acts, but some changes, and the names have now been changed. Now, this new criminal justice system was introduced in the 19th century. You know, a lot of changes happened after the mutiny. The administration of Government of India was taken over by the Queen, by the Crown, from the British East India Company. And this new, entirely new system of justice was introduced. By the end of the year, by the century, they decided to have a look at how all this had helped to improve the criminal justice and police system in India. The second police commission was appointed in 1902-03, and they came out with a report which condemned the existing police system outright as it is totally mismanaged, full of corrupt practices, full of human rights violations, and need to be thoroughly overhauled. You know, the system was introduced just less than a half century back. And they have actually, the report is worth, it's available on the net as it makes pathetic reading about how things are being managed. And all these things that you are referring to in your speech about, third-degree murders, all the violations of human rights, all that is being regularly practiced. And the Commission recommended that all this system should be overhauled. But nothing was done. Because the government's attention got diverted on account of various factors. One of course, the nascent independence movement, which was gaining strength, and they needed to tackle that movement. And of course, this kind of policing was helpful in tackling the independence struggle. Secondly, of course, the Great War, which later came to be known as the First World War, was about to start, and its consequences. So, nothing was done. That is the police system that was inherited by independent India, along with the provisions of the Indian Police Act of 1861, which actually had a clause which said that the superintendence of the police rests with the government. And the Inspector General of Police is there in the province, but the superintendence rests with the government. Okay, under the British government, there's no problem. There was no opposition. The government is fine. But once independence came and once we had a new constitution, perhaps the act should have been immediately changed to make sure that the opposition also had a role in the management of the police. Otherwise, what happens is the government is the ruling party and the police become the ruling party's police. That is the basic defect that the Indian Police Act had. So, independence came actually, like I said, this defective system and the officers who grew up in that came to take over. All the Britishers left, and some of our officers took over as chiefs of police and all that. And some of them were not really up to the mark. In fact, there's a apocryphal story about an Inspector General, an Indian officer who became Inspector General of Police all of a sudden in a province, a major province. And then the Inspector General had immense powers, including recruiting officers as deputy superintendents of police, which is a rather high level of. So this particular Inspector General of Police recruited not one but two of his sons as deputy superintendents of police. So someone went and told the Chief Minister, look, this is happening. The Chief Minister called him and asked him, okay, what's happening? So the IG's response was classic. He said, sir, if I don't recruit my sons, who will? But at the same time, I must say that some of the officers who were recruited into the Indian police from 1920 onwards were truly brilliant men. One of the first among them, Kumar Sinha. In fact, he had a great legacy in the sense that he became Inspector General of Police in Bihar. His son became Inspector General of Police in Bihar. And his son, Lieutenant General S.K. Sinha, nearly became Army Chief. And two of his other sons joined one of them was with me two of them were with me in the police, the IPS. So it's a truly remarkable family. And he was one of the first to be recruited, Indians to be recruited into the Indian police in 1920. I'm not talking about Indian police service, Indian police under the British. Then there were people like Mr. P.N. Malik, who was director of the Intelligence Bureau, Pandit Nehru's, Prime Minister Nehru's trusted intelligence chief for over a decade. Then Mr. R&AW, and Mr. Shankar Nair, who founded the organization that I had the honor to head later on, much later on, the Research and Analysis Wing. D.P. Kohli, who was the first chief of the Central Bureau of Investigation. Then Mr. K. Rastamji, who set up the Border Security Force. A number of brilliant officers were there from the Indian police. But even to them, it was an uphill task to see that the police, would pursue the right course, mainly because of this problem of political interference. Because the political masters had all the power, and you simply had to obey them according to law. I mean, not illegal. They had the power of superintendents over the police. Now, but again, I must say that in several, I'm talking about the British India, and where then there were many of these states where again the police was mismanaged and was being used mainly for the purposes of serving the interests of the Maharajas. Some of the states like Travancore and Cochin had a different record. We had sort of enlightened Maharajas who did introduce some police reforms, and Travancore was one of the earliest states in India to have introduced women's police. In 1939, they started recruiting police women. In fact, when I was the state police chief, in the early years of the millennium, we had a function in the police headquarters where we invited all the retired, senior most police pensioners, to honor them. And one of them was a lady police officer who joined as a police constable, woman police constable in 1946. And she was a delightful old lady, and she was recounting her memories of the time she was recruited in 1946. Actually, at the audience, there were also at that meeting, there were a large number of young women police recruits, women police constables. They were also there. They were enjoying her talk. She said the uniform initially was mundum neyyudu. About, they used to go marching down the streets of Thiruvananthapuram, and the young men of Trivandrum would gather around and sing a song. And she looked at me and said, I remember that song, can I recite it? So she went on and sang that very raunchy song, that describing the policewomen's uniform and the way they were marching and all. So everyone, including the young police women, they enjoyed this old lady's recounting of the whole story. So basically, the recruiting police women into the police was never a revolutionary concept in the 1930s, but Travancore did that. In spite of all this, in independent India, the reputation of the police in the States steadily declined. Then the emergency happened in 1975. There was a general perception that the police had been misused to suppress democratic freedoms during that period. So following the defeat of the government in 1977, the new government which came to power set up yet another National Police Commission, third in the history of the Indian police. That to the commission which did a remarkable exercise of studying the issue at length. Actually, it was headed by Mr. Dharamveer, who was ICS, who had been Home Secretary of India and later Governor of Karnataka. And the member secretary was Mr. C.V. Narasimhan, who was actually the first Indian Police Service officer to have been recruited. After independence from 1948, the Indian Police Service came into being. And the first batch, the top of the first batch was Mr. C.V. Narasimhan. And he was the member secretary of this commission. And all the other members were also very distinguished people. And they came out with a set of recommendations which are truly outstanding. I mean, they actually identified the problem facing Indian police and came out with recommendations and submitted their report in 1980. But no action was taken on the recommendations by the government for several years, several decades. There are many reasons for that which I shall not go into now. But in spite of the fact that, the recommendations of the Indian Police Commission for changing the law of 1861 were not enacted, still there were people who imbibed, political leaders who imbibed those recommendations, which basically meant giving the police autonomy. There are three factors which are involved. It is giving the police authority to do their job, autonomy from political interference, and accountability of the police. These things. The person whom I must specially mention here is Mr. A.K. Antony, who was Chief Minister of Kerala during the period 2001 to 2004. He did a truly remarkable thing, a very brave decision for a politician, and decided to give the police a free hand in managing the law and order. Free hand meaning, to exercise the law as it should be. Here again, I must mention that the chief of police at the time was Mr. K.J. Joseph, who unfortunately is unwell these days, seriously unwell these days. And he was the one who actually convinced Mr. Anthony that this is how policing should be done. And he was convinced. And he said, and at the time in the assembly of 140 MLAs, the ruling party, the ruling coalition had 100 MLAs. He said no ruling party MLA will go to the police station with any recommendation. And the police should be free to, discharge their duties without any intervention. But of course, that experiment did not survive Mr. Anthony's term, for which there are reasons, because actually Mr. Anthony, while he did this, there was no legal authority to put that into a framework. So the result that there was scope for the opposition or even for his own party MLA to say that, look, the police is misusing all its powers. And they should actually, the Indian police, the recommendations of the police commission provide for an accountability mechanism, so that the police can't go and to get away with whatever they do. But that accountability mechanism was not put into place. It was depending on the chief of police whom we had trust. Fortunately, I also succeeded Mr. Joseph, and I think he had a certain degree of trust in me also. He was trusting us to enforce, to see that the police do their job properly. But that is not enough actually. Legally, you have to have an accountability mechanism. That is not put in place at the time. Another person who realized the value of the National Police Commission recommendation was Mr. Indrajit, who was the Home Minister, Mr. Indrajit Gupta of the CPI, Communist Party of India, who was the Union Home Minister in the Gujarat Ministry in 1997. He also wrote to the state government saying that the recommendation to the police commission, by which the police should be free from political interference, should be implemented. But nothing came of that. Then in 1996, Mr. Prakash Singh, the former Director General of PSF, who is still alive and who is still very active, he went to the Supreme Court and said that the recommendations of the Police Commission of 1980 should be implemented so that police in India would be on a sound footing. The Supreme Court took 10 years more to actually deliver a judgment on that. On the 22nd of September 2006, the Supreme Court bench headed by Chief Justice Y.K. Sabharwal came out with a historic judgment upholding the recommendations of the National Police Commission, and in which he said that the recommendations of the National Police Commission are all proper and just and should be implemented. And he identified 4 of the recommendations. One is to have a state security commission at the state level. Secondly, a transparent procedure for the appointment of the police chief and giving him a fixed tenure. Thirdly, separation of law and order and investigation. And then a new police act in which all this will be codified. So these 4 actually, when you talk about who should be policing the police, the answer lies in this. A state security commission in which the Chief Minister or the Home Minister, the opposition leader, and a representative of the Chief Justice of the High Court would be there, along with some non-official members, should be there to actually monitor the functioning of the police. And they should also have a say in appointing the police chief, who would then be given a fixed tenure, security of tenure will be given to him, so that he does not have to fear the political executive in the execution of his law. I don't know how much time.
Please carry on. This time.
Okay. Now, so that was a real landmark judgment, and the Supreme Court said every state and the central government should introduce new police acts, or the central government should make a police act which can be adopted by all the states. A model police act was actually drafted by the National Police Commission, and later Soli Soraji headed a committee which drafted another model police act in which all these principles were incorporated. And all that the government had to do was to implement it. But anyway, the union government didn't do it. But the state governments, following this Supreme Court directive, were forced to comply with the directive. And the first state to actually introduce a new police act was Kerala in 2011. Mr. Jacob Punnu is the director general of it. I had retired by then. Mr. Jacob Punnu is the one who actually piloted that act. And he did a wonderful job by marshalling all it was passed unanimously by the Kerala Assembly. But unfortunately, that did not incorporate some of the basic principles which Supreme Court had actually laid down. Now, Supreme Court can really, they can't really make the law. They can only make guidelines. They can't tell the Assembly that you have to make the law. So that was the main problem. Many of the state assemblies managed to bypass these directions. Kerala, by and large, sort of incorporated most of the things, but then the State Security Commission and its role in appointing the police chief was bypassed even in the Kerala Police Act. Then this led to a situation which many of you might remember a few years back, when Mr. Sen Kumar, who was the Director General of Police in Kerala, was removed the day after the government changed, and even the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court said that the government had no powers to remove. But it took two years for the judgment to come, and by the time its judgment came, Sen Kumar had only 1 month left. So in effect that was, it didn't really help. But in that judgment, Justice Madan Lokur laid down, reiterated these principles again, saying that the post of the Director General of Police, like Chief Secretary, Director General of Police, both are sensitive appointments, but the Director General of Police is an entity by itself, a separate entity by itself, because he is part of the criminal justice system. He is actually Lord Denning, the Doyen of British jurisprudence, once said, the Commissioner of Police is answerable to the law and only to the law, not to anybody else, not to his minister. So that principle was reiterated by Mr. Madan Lokur once again in that judgment up to 2017. There have been 2 or 3 other judgments which from the Supreme Court since then, which again highlighted this principle. But unfortunately, what's happening is that, I'll tell you what the basic problem is. I mean, the need for reform lies because as per the law which is existing, it is legal for the government to give directions to the police chief, and he has to obey. Now, the question is, a political party which comes to power, elected government, whether it should be in a position to give directions to the police chief, and whether the police chief is to obey him or whether he is to obey the law. So Supreme Court has, repeatedly said that he has to obey the law. Primarily, he must obey the law. He has responsibility to the elected government, but within the parameters laid down by the law. So this principle is a little uncomfortable, unfortunately, to most of our politicians. They would like the police to be amenable to, so that the interests of their political party can be advanced. That is where the problem lies. And then, in changing the law, that when the ruling party is misusing the police, the opposition will have a grievance. But in the grievance, the fact is that even the opposition is not very keen to change the law, because when they come to power, they want to use the police. That is the basic problem. In spite of the repeated Supreme Court interventions in 2006, many state governments have managed to bypass these principles laid down by the Sun government, or by the Apex Court. And one of the favorite tricks is not to appoint a regular DGP, appoint an acting DGP. The acting DGP, the act doesn't apply. So you can, appoint an officer whom you like as acting DGP, and he'll keep on, obeying you. So these are the things that I think our intelligence, our people must be aware of. This is the way to police the police, by ensuring that I'm not saying that the elected government doesn't have a responsibility to manage the police. That they have a responsibility to manage the police, to make sure that they deliver justice. And the mechanism for doing that has also been now, prescribed by the Apex Court. Have a State Security Commission, which will oversee the functioning of the police. And the responsibility of the State Security Commission, even if that part about their role in selecting the chief is not mentioned, there are several other things like monitoring the working of the police, giving general policy directions, and then giving a report annually to the Assembly and to the Governor, through the Assembly to the Governor. So there is a system in place, but actually the general public is not aware that there is a State Security Commission in the state. Even the opposition leader is also part of this Security Commission. So the State Security Commission system functions properly. I think, I'm not saying that all problems will be readily solved. And if we have a police chief who has security of tenure, and therefore doesn't have to be worried that if he doesn't listen to the Chief Minister or Home Minister, will be changed overnight, then we can have, and of course the state police chief also has to be selected properly through a proper mechanism. Then we can hope to have there can always be aberrations, but we can hope to have a police better than what we have today. Then there is also this part of this the new act and the guidelines. They're setting up a police complaints committees at district level and state level, in which the judiciary is also represented, so that there we have a complaint against the police, we can go to them and get. So all this is already there, but it's not. I don't know how. I mean, we need to be vigilant. We need to check how effectively that system is taking place. The intelligentsia and the media also have a great role to play in ensuring police accountability and helping police to perform better. While it is important to condemn human rights violations, civil society and journalists must also realize that the law permits the police to use force under certain circumstances. If legitimate use of force resorted to by the police is condemned as human rights violations, it can have a deleterious impact on the morale of those charged with the maintenance of law and order. The police must be given a fair chance to explain their actions. It is worth recalling what Alan Barat said in his book, The Price of Liberty, and I quote, "We expect him, as a policeman, to show courage of Achilles, the chivalry of Sir Walter Raleigh, the integrity of George Washington, the sagacity of Solomon, the patience of Job, the sweetness and light of St. Francis of Assisi." And what inducement do we offer to attract such paragons? Generally, with some exceptions, low pay and long hours, limited promotional possibilities, sporadic bombardments of public ridicule and abuse. Unquote. And now I'll close, and I'll conclude by quoting Rudyard Kipling. "God and policemen alike we adore, while only in danger and not before. Danger over, both are alike requited. God is forgotten and policeman is slighted." Thank you.
We can have, thank you very much, sir, for that beautiful rendering of the police. And now the floor is open for any questions.
No, from what we hear, it's very obvious that the Act says so, and discipline or policing, all the rules is needed. But personally, I find that there is one helpless attitude of acceptance to the system. Is it supposed to be that way, or even this? There are a lot of very, very high rank seniors. So can't something be done? Like, I'm sure all of the whole police system wants this political interference to be under control, not to be taken advantage of. So why is this helpless acceptance tone being accepted?
Well, part of the problem is in how we look at democracy. Whenever there is talk about police autonomy being given to the police, the response of many, mainly the politicians, is that in democracy we are elected, and the police, we are answerable to the police, to the government, and to the people through the assembly. And therefore, we must have the authority for the police. That is true. But that must be within the parameters of the law. The problem under the earlier act, as I mentioned, was that the power of superintendence was given to the government. And therefore, the powers to give direction is there with the government. Now things have slightly changed because the State Security Commission can actually moderate, that role. But still, like I said, the law is defective, not been implemented properly so far. So which is why I think we need to keep putting pressure to see that these principles which have already been accepted by the Supreme Court are implemented. It is a fact even now that people, I'm not referring to Kerala, but many states, officers who actually see that, certain things are not proper and point it out to the political authority, suffer for it. They're transferred, they are sidelined, it's happening. So it is for civil society to take up. We now have a Supreme Court order, a series of orders, which says that something can be done, but partly it could be the fault of people like us who are not really brought to the notice of the general public and civil society that a legal solution is now available, but we need to press and see that it is implemented.
So this
Sir, my question is way back to 2002 in Gujarat. You dwelt at length about the action taken by Supreme Court successively to make police accountable and the security group to monitor the police, etc. But in the critical meeting in 2002 between the then Chief Minister and the Chief of Police, if the police chief had listened to his conscience and followed the law, could the riots have been avoided or reduced in its intensity?
You're referring to a meeting at which I was not present, so I'm not able to really respond to this question because I don't know what instructions were given and what instructions were implemented. But of course, I've also heard stories of which, on the basis of which I would not like to make a comment. But, well, certainly the police chief had a responsibility to see that the riots were controlled. I mean, it was ultimately his responsibility, not that of the chief minister. He should have put his foot down and seen that it is controlled. If he didn't do it,
So one question is about the remuneration of the police force in Kerala and their performance. In the sense, we see that the police force, the policemen, some of them are very thin and they are not that stout and all. Because why I said this is, while I was traveling in USA sometime, back there the policemen are very, I think they are all paid well, and I think I have a feeling that our police force are not properly paid, or their lifestyle is not enough to give the real policing. And the second question is about the year 1920, which you said the IPS was formed also. Because is there any important, because 1920, the Institute of Engineers also was formed in India. So is there any importance for that year?
could be, I think I can't readily recall. Could be that the Mitomoli reforms were in 1890, maybe as a result of that, at least, new steps might have been taken. But regarding the size of the policemen in the US, the size of the policemen here, well, the rugby players in the US are bigger than some of our football players here. So that doesn't necessarily mean that we are underpaid.
Is the corruption also related with that, if at all there? That's what I.
Corruption.
Yes.
Actually, I'm told, nearly 20 years since I retired, I'm told that the pay scales for policemen in Kerala today are not too bad, compared to what it used to be in the early days. So, to blame corruption on low pay alone may not be correct, in the sense that corruption is a mental state, even if we get paid very well, we can be corrupt.
Post 1984 riots, post Indira Gandhi's demise, and after that riots in Delhi, elsewhere, everywhere throughout India. Did the police were instructed, or did they take a passive role in not trying to control the riots? No, we are not talking about politics, we are just asking.
Yeah,
You are in the service there.
Yeah, but actually I was away from the country at the time, so I don't have no, but I'm not avoiding the question. This is actually a phenomenon which we need to, Godra was also referred to. Godra, 84 rights, all these are phenomena which we need to be ashamed of. How do these things happen? Like, if you look at neighboring countries, the riots in Sri Lanka in 1983. All these are basically because of the police perception that that there's some political sanction for inaction. I think to that extent, I think your question is also answered. I think there is feeling. And partly it could also be that, like, in 1984, some of these assassinations of leaders, really create passions among the policemen also. They also feel that, okay, we must teach these guys a lesson, which is not legal. I mean, they're not supposed to take it, to have that kind of a response. But sometimes it happens, and that could be one explanation for why kind of a brutal reaction or inaction, because they're permitting brutality.
Hello. Good evening, sir. I am Dr. Lalita, professor in Cochin University. First of all, let me express my deep appreciation for your speech because, since I am a person of English language and literature, I was enjoying every bit that you said, and your quotes were so apt. You even brought a lot of etymology, how the words came and all that, and then of course you dived deep into the Indian history too. Coming from a police officer, it was surprising. It was a very pleasant surprise. Sir, I have two things to say. One thing is, I don't know, we have all heard about Scotland Yard, and even very Sherlock Holmes types of policemen. So Sherlock Holmes was, of course, not a policeman. He was helping Scotland Yard. But is Scotland Yard as powerful as it used to be then? That is one question. May not be, depending on your speech or anything, I'm slightly going out, but I'm just curiosity. And then again, you said, opposition people should also be given importance. Opposition, as the very word suggests, means they have to sit and oppose everything. So if opposition and the ruling party are included, will there not be a controversy in the way they operate? Yes.
About Scotland Yard, they have. But Sherlock Holmes is a fictional character.
Yes, yes.
The Scotland Yard has got quite a great reputation over the years for a certain level of investigation. But even in India, there are certain very good investigators. Even in Kerala, there's some outstanding police investigation have been done. So that depends on various aspects. Regarding this opposition, and they need not be. Actually, the law enforcement should be to opposition and government can work together. The whole idea.
But will they? Will they?
You see,
The opposition's job is to oppose.
no, in a State Security Commission, when both are there, the government cannot get away with whatever they want to do. That's the idea. They may not agree, but there will be a check and balance. That is it.
Sir,
Thank you.
one question, sir. We have been seeing plenty of reforms in police force, but one thing is remaining not changed much related to there are talented people in police force. So they can sing, they can act, they can write well, but they are highly restricted and they could get permission from the department. Is there any reforms on that area? Because many people, they are very highly talented, but they are highly restricted.
That's the pursuit of the talents in arts is concerned, there is not much of a restriction. Except that when you're on duty, you can't go around dancing and singing. That's the only restriction. Otherwise, there is not even government permission is required for, writing on art and culture and all that, or taking part in cultural activities. In your spare time, of course. That's why are you referring to any specific case?
Not like that, because sometimes many government departments, they want permission from higher ups for going for acting in a movie or singing a song. But all these activities are reducing the stress, because police force are highly stressed these days.
No, as a policy, I don't think there will be any objection to people going and acting in films and all that. But the restriction is finding time for that. I mean, if sometimes shooting a film takes 2-3 months, maybe you won't be able to spare an officer or a constable for that long. That is the only restriction.
Sir, what really happened during that, say, 1975 emergency excesses, especially in Kerala? You are having a very highly democratic system here. I mean, no politics involved, but I'm just asking, where the police force then? I mean, were you carried away by the powers that were given to you, or to the times?
I don't know. How old were you in 1975?
Well, I was in,
No. The fact is that there were not many complaints against the Kerala police during the emergency period.
But you have heard excesses, no? Emergency excesses you have seen.
In other states, but here...
You have that Rajan case.
Yeah, Rajan...
That in fact pulled down the Achyutam Menon.
Rajan case, I would say, was not an emergency excess. It was an excess. But it happened during emergency. It had nothing to do with emergency as such. Actually, Kerala police acquitted itself quite well during the emergency. The Shah Commission didn't hardly any case except the Rajan case. So in Kerala, there were excesses elsewhere.
So, one question.
Excuse me.
So, earlier, Maharashtra police could be compared to...
And the greatest endorsement of that is that ruling government at that time came back with a greater majority in the next election.
Congress.
My question is, I am Deepak.
Sorry, he was asking.
Oh, okay.
So, earlier, Maharashtra police could be compared to a Scotland Yard. And you were also the DGP of Kerala. And in your tenure, have you ever tried to bring Kerala police to where you could compare it to Scotland Yard or Maharashtra police? And my second question is, we were talking about the State Security Commission. A lot of times we find that the senior police officers, maybe even at the IG level, because of the high-handedness, they don't get punished. They are either suspended or transferred. There is no punishment except for that IG Lakshman's case, wherein he went to a jail for the Naxalite Burgess murder case. So, is it that the politicians are not interested, or the law is not there to punish these senior police officers?
Well, all I can say is that the law is equal for everyone in this country. And if no police officer has been convicted, a senior police officer has been convicted except the one you mentioned, the reason is that there is no evidence against them. The law did not support punishing them. That is the law of the land.
So, my question is, police is increasingly seen as taking actions.
I think that will be the last question, please. Can I continue?
Police is increasingly seen as taking actions after occurrence of a crime, mostly, at least to the general public. I am wondering, why can't police become proactive in reducing the rate of crimes or mitigating the potential crimes that otherwise would have happened? That is one. On the second part, is there something that the police is doing to make awareness among the public to mitigate committing crimes? Because now
the social circumstances are very different from what it used to be 20 years before. With the internet, with the WhatsApp like social media, crime rate is increasing and becoming more complex. But police is not seen doing anything proactive to educate the society also. So why can't something like this could happen?
Well, my impression is that police is doing, police has always been doing preventive. Preventive action is one of police's major responsibilities. Police patrolling is itself a preventive action. Night patrolling, police patrolling during the day, that is one way of preventive action. Then there are professionally we have various things within the police where we have a system of checking criminals and their movements, and we have a system of documenting criminals and their movements and their intelligence. So there is a very sophisticated system which has been developed from the British times, which is very much there, with this, part of the criminal preventive mechanism. Apart from that, there's creation of awareness. I agree with you, that's very important, especially with this cyber crimes and all that, and so many people are getting. So I understand that the police currently has an awareness creation program through their own WhatsApp mechanism and things like that. So the awareness thing is there's something known as community policing, which has been, in fact, in Kerala, there's the Janmaitri community policing system was a very good system, which now become a somewhat inactive. There's a good system for actually involving the community in giving them awareness and then also seeking their help in fighting crime. I hope something will be done up to revive that. Then the student police cadet system you must have heard about. So there are various other things which are happening. And the individual policemen who do a lot of things in their neighborhoods. So things are being done, but in an organized way. I think I'm told that the cyber wing of the Kerala police is quite active, and we have a number of policemen who are very good in this cyber technology. So I believe they're doing actually I'm not really up to, I don't know what exactly happening today, but the impression is that a lot is being done. See, some of the cases which were detected recently, some of the details have come out in the media. Scotland Yard and all would take their hats off to some of the investigations done by Kerala police recently.
So thank you very much, everyone, for this great interaction. Thank you very much, sir. Now for the formal vote of thanks, I would request Tom Joseph to come forward.
Good evening to you all once again. President Vibhu Vipunitan, Speaker of the Day, Hormis sir, Managing Committee Member Srinivasan sir. It's quite stressful. I could see that talking about police itself is a bit stressful. Maybe it's a very delicate subject to talk about. Rather, the topic was policing the who will police the police, but then Hormis sir started with the evolution of police itself, right from Gupta dynasty and all to that. And then he listed the reforms time to time wherein the legislators have involved, bureaucracy, police themselves are suggested, and Supreme Court was interested. But end of the day, people still have that fear, fury and all in mind up to a certain extent. And it was quite evident while Mr. Srinivasan was introducing, he was a bit of excited about the the challenges a common man faces when he has to approach a police officer for one or other reason. At the same time, when Hormis was detaining for almost more than an hour, I had a doubt whether he was in police. So polite, I mean, as Srinivasa sir rightly said, when he was in CM's OSD, yet he's interacted quite a few times, many times with Hormis sir and said he's the most honest, polite person. So it's all paradoxes, but still, we all parked our car, we all safely drove all the way for this meeting. We do for all our requirements, we travel everything. By the time we go back to our car is safe and our belongings are inside. So that says we are in a safe community society. Leaving aside one or two issues or other, I mean, minor things, we are blessed in a major way that we live in a very safe, thanks to the police. All conflict meeting, so yeah, that's one thing. See, we have seen Swiss guards in Vatican, which is a 100-acre principality, independently ruled principality, guarded by 100 Swiss guards. They're not from their own. They're not from Italy or anywhere. They come from Swiss guards, and the surprising that they don't even blink, they don't even move. Then why do they stand there? That's another thing. But then it's all delicate things. So on a lighter note, one or two things. Many years ago, when I started my business here in Cochin, my neighboring office had an office boy. So one day he said, "Sir, I'm going back. I'm leaving the job and going back." This was almost 15 years ago. So then, yeah, what happened? I'm going back to Kannur. This time I had to clear my SSLC. Why? What happened this time? No, my government has come in power. So large level recruitments are going to happen. So clear SSLC first. So do you have any kind? No, mathematics is the only problem. There in 5 questions will be wrong questions in the question paper itself. So this man was telling me, so then 10 marks will come. So then I clear SSLC, then I will clear, I don't know whether it's become police constable also. But this is what he told me when he was saying bye to me. I was only his neighbor office. Why sir, I'm leaving tomorrow. This is the case. And I don't know what I'm going to say is right or wrong. Srinivasa was speaking about the speaker as a very honest, polite person. My native place belongs to Guroilangat, and when I used to drive to Guroilangat, I used to, all while back also, I used to provision. I used to purchase fish from a vendor, Mr. Ramesh and Putotele, and he used to sell freshwater fish. So he used to place a couple of photographs in his shop with film actors and all buying fish from him. So you are an important person, VIP. No, sir, these are all gimmicks. Actual photo I will show you. And he has shown me one photo just with, he told me that Hormis sir's family also buys fish from me. No, he told me this. What I am saying is honest, but whether he was so the purity of the product he sells is ensured. I don't know whether this is what I am saying is correct, but then whether he was genuine or no, I do not know. These are the lighter things which we come across in day-to-day life. Sir, you are narrated in a sequence with a proper preparation skill, all the reforms.
It take too long.
Generally our meetings end at 7:45, but 10 minutes. But then we were curious to listen to you. Yeah. Thank you for that, and we all enjoyed it. Thank you for being with us today evening, and thank you Alchis for and as a token of our respect and appreciation, to accept a moment, I request Vice Admiral Murali sir to come forward to honor the speaker with a memento. Please, sir.
Dear colleagues, thank you for
I thank past presidents Matthew Urumbat, Jos Pele, and managing committee members, and all present here. And before I sign off, our annual convention falls on 16th and 17th of January. This is in Hayat, and the registration is in full swing. Tomorrow is the last day for that. What do you call it? Early bird. And if you are not prepared for the payment, you can register your names with Anuba or Pradeep or anybody. You can. I request you to avail that early bird offer. The speakers are extraordinary speakers, great speakers. Rajiv Chandrasekhar sir is here. Then Sunita Reddy, Apollo Hospital President. Then many great speakers are there. Please be present, register and be present for the annual convention. And I thank you all once again for this, your valuable presence for this meeting. Thank you all.
Before we adjourn, I request all of you to kindly stand for the national anthem.
जनगणमन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल गंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्छल जगति तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे